Many people think of Christianity as a Western imposition on China. It's actually a Chinese religion as early as England. 30 years after St. Augustine came to England, Leping, a Syrian monk, crossed the Silk Road and brought Christianity to China. And you can visit the library that he built. You can see the stele of the Chinese monk telling this story. So we have a whole history, a minority, yes, for sure, but a religion that integrated beautifully at different periods of time with elements of Chinese classical tradition. So I just go through that very briefly in this very quick overview. Here's the Silk Road, right? Imagine those monks, 21 of them crossing in 635 by camels, arriving to be welcomed by the Buddhist leaders of China of the time. And they were given all kinds of opportunities to share, to translate, to talk, to build a library. Here you can see the dialogue going on. And then the famous stele, 781, stone, so it couldn't be burned by emperors who liked to burn books. Yes, buried for about 600 years. I think it was about 895, buried till 1625, but here it is, you can see it, and it has a beautiful text written by the monk Jing Jing. I won't read it, but just telling the story of how much Christianity was welcomed in that very early period. Then we have the famous story of Matteo Ricci. Everybody knows Li Mado. And you may not know, but he's likely to be made a saint by the current pope sometime in the next few years. And I think that's quite wonderful. The only issue is, can we get Xu Guangqi in there as well? Because he should also be recognized in the same way. So again, a real mutual dialogue of learning, so valuable to Europe, because Matteo Ricci translated 3 of the 4 texts of Confucius and a biography, and then was able to write a bestseller in Chinese. Which of us, even who have studied Chinese forever, here's his route, of course, are able to write a book in Chinese that could be widely read? I mean, it was such an amazing achievement. Staying in China right to the end of his life, you can still visit his grave in China. Such a period of reciprocal learning. So I just knew it's possible. Here they are in a Shanghai park, the 2 of them, Xu Guangqi and Matteo Ricci. So what was the foundation for me? I was a young teacher at Fudan back in the early 1980s, the first 2 classes after the Cultural Revolution. And I learned about Ma Sanbo, the Catholic scholar who founded 3 universities, Zhendan, Fudan, Furen. And I came to see how he had beautifully brought together the classics from his own family tradition, the family of Ma Duanlin from the 12th, 13th century, and then educated by the Jesuits, walked out when he felt they didn't respect Chinese classics like Matteo Ricci did, but then came back to donate land to found Fudan, Furen, and then Furen, which became, here's actually the original College St. Ignace of the Jesuits where he studied. And then, of course, founded Furen University, which is now in Taiwan. Well, here he is, someone I admire. I couldn't meet him. He died in 1939 after 100 years, but I met his granddaughter, and the family are still active. So I just feel this is someone who has been neglected. When I was a diplomat in Beijing, when I had free time on the weekends, I translated his works. And this book, Ma Sanbo and the Mind of Modern China, lets you see what a beautiful foundation for the liberal arts you can find in his writing and his thinking, deeply rooted in Chinese classics, but fully exposed to the richness of European classical texts and Christianity and bringing them together in a most beautiful way. This building belongs to Beijing Normal University now. That's the original Furen building. And of course, Furen itself is now in Taiwan and still a leading university. So I just felt that history is so important. Tending to think liberal arts is something that came from European traditions, from America in the 1950s, but Asia has its own extremely rich traditions, and they need to be more fully recognized, not only in Asia, but also what the West can learn from them. So we got the idea, Leping and I, to work with a scholar at Chinese U, and Peter Ng actually helped to select 13 chapters written by current professors in a number of Chinese universities about the legacy of the Christian university. By the communists, they're condemned as cultural imperialism. Yes, there's some reasons for that. We don't deny that. But there were also very positive lessons, and you can see the beauty of the harmony when you visit their campuses. So I just mentioned some of the chapters. So Chen Yuan, very famous for his work in interreligious dialogue and understanding, and president of Furen for many years. Everybody knows about Yanjing. Beijing has brought back a lot of Peking University, recognition to that. Hangzhou Christian University, a huge center of Chinese classical learning when it was a Christian university. And then to me, one of the fascinating chapters, an architect, Dong Li, who claims without these universities, Chinese classical architecture might have been lost because it was such a troubled period between 1911 and the 1940s. And so very, very valuable for the architectural heritage that they leave. And also a lot of support for women's education. Many of you know about one of the first woman presidents, Wu Yifang, of the Jinling College for Women, one of the Christian universities. Here's the man that made it all possible. He had the guts after the Cultural Revolution. He was a graduate of University of Nanking, president of Central China Normal University, set up an institute in the early 80s to research the history of the Christian universities. And almost every chapter is one of his doctoral students who used archival material, interviews in China, in Europe, in North America to write these different chapters. He passed away only 2 or 3 years ago. I was privileged to meet him a number of times. He organized different conferences, bringing people together and insisting that we have to learn from the positive lessons. So really 100 years of collaboration. The United Board in New York, I was actually a trustee for many years, was founded in 1922 to support them. 1952, when China and US broke up, it said, okay, we'll just reach out to Asia. We're now the United Board for Christian Higher Education in Asia. And then finally, in 1979 or early 80s, when China-US got together again, China rejoined and has had a member on that. So they were celebrating 100 years in 2022. We wanted the book out then. It came out 1 year later. But all the lessons of collaboration and mutual understanding and mutual enrichment have been shared now throughout Asia.